Hello everyone, welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make these super easy soft pretzels at home. I tried this recipe with my kids for a homeschool assignment and they came out absolutely amazing. So this is the one that we always use. I make these whenever I get a chance and they remind us of the Disneyland soft pretzels that you dip in the nacho cheese. They're just so good. So today I made them two ways. I made some salted and some cinnamon brown sugar. I honestly can't tell you which was better because they were both amazing. But okay, just to start, we're going to add our yeast to a bowl. So I added 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, or 1 packet of instant or dry active yeast. And then we are going to warm up some water. You're going to need 1.5 cups of warm water. So I usually just measure it out and then I microwave it for about 30 to 40 seconds. And then you're going to pour that in with your yeast and whisk it together real well. Make sure your water is not super hot to the point where you're going to kill the yeast, and make sure it's not still cold to the point where it won't work. So if you stick your finger in the water and it's like lukewarm and it's not burning you, then it's perfect. And then once you mix your water in real well, you're going to add in 1 teaspoon salt, 1 tablespoon of packed brown sugar, and then we're going to melt 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter and add that in there as well. So I got my water mixed in here and I'm going to be adding my brown sugar first. Like I said, just make sure you pack it in there. You can use white sugar if you'd like to. This recipe says brown or white sugar. I've always used the brown sugar. I'm not sure if it helps kind of give the coloring to the pretzels, but this is what I've used and I would recommend doing the same because they will come out very, very good. So once your sugar is mixed well in there, you're going to need, like I said, 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter. If you have the stick, you could just cut it and then microwave it until it's melted. If you have the other kind, then you can just measure it out. So I just melted this again in the microwave and then you pour it in and mix well. And now I'm going to be adding in my 1 teaspoon of salt. I love this recipe because it doesn't take all day like a lot of homemade breads and baked goods do. You don't have to wait for this to rise. We just let it rise for about 10 minutes once you have your dough together. And the longest part really is just rolling them out and making them into the pretzel shape. But other than that, it's very quick and very easy. So now you're going to need about 3 3/4 cup flour. I use just unbleached white flour. You can use regular flour, whatever kind you want to use. And make sure you only add 1 cup at a time because sometimes you don't need as much and you're going to be using flour to roll out your dough. So just add in 1 cup, stir that in real well, and then you can add your 2nd cup, stir that in real well, and then kind of judge by how sticky your dough still is to see how much you need. And again, a great thing about this recipe is that you only need 1 bowl. You don't have to do like you're wet and then you dry another bowl. Everything's in 1 bowl, so it's very quick and it's very simple. So I tried to speed this up for you guys because it might be boring, but I really like these videos for myself when I want to learn how to make something, just having everything step by step and watching someone else do it. So hopefully this will help you guys, but I will speed it up here and there so it's not too boring. So I've added in my 3 cups of flour, and now I added in another 1/4 cup, and then I'm still just going to see if I need the whole 3/4 cup. Sometimes you don't need all of it because it's perfect already. But if you do have a really sticky dough, then add some more. So once it gets really hard to stir, we're going to add it to a floured surface and knead it out with our hands. You can tell because it just starts sticking to your spoon and you can't stir anymore. So that's when you want to transfer it over and just start using your hands. And if it's still really sticky, just add a little bit of flour on top each time when you knead it until it's not sticking to your hands anymore. So nice to have a dishwasher with me here. So we're just going to fold and smash, fold and smash. That's basically what kneading is. You're just going to keep folding it over, smashing it down, folding it over, smashing it down until you have a nice smooth dough. So you're going to want to knead this at least about 5 to 10 minutes. And then once it's ready, you'll be able to tell, and I'm going to show you what it should look like. My dough is still pretty sticky throughout this process, so you see me just adding flour here and there. Just add little handfuls, not even a handful, just little sprinkles when you need it so that it's not too much. You'll know if you have way too much flour because your dough is going to just become so dry and hard, and you can taste the dryness when you bake it. So you just want to do a little bit at a time to make sure you still have a really moist pretzel. So as you can see here, this is what your dough should look like when you're finished. When you press down, the dough bounces back very slowly and it doesn't stick to your finger. So you're just going to want to roll it out into a nice ball like you see here, and you're going to add it to a lightly oiled bowl. I just use a little bit of olive oil. I pour a little bit in, and then I mix it around with a paper towel so that it can soak up the excessive amounts. And then when you add your dough to the bowl, just roll it around to get all the edges oiled, and then you're just going to cover that up either with a moist towel, or like I do, I just add saran wrap, cover it up nicely, and then set it aside for room temperature for at least 10 minutes. And then when we set that aside, that's usually when I just clean my area and you can start your baking soda bath. So this is what it should look like, and then you just set this aside. Now I'm going to start my baking soda bath. You need about 9 cups of water, and then to that you're going to add a half cup of baking soda. So you want to bring your water to a boil and add in your baking soda. The recipe calls for 9 cups. I added a couple more just because I wanted to make sure it'll cover my pretzels, and you don't want them to stick to the side of the pot or anything. So if 9 cups doesn't look like enough water to keep all your pretzels in there, then just add a little bit more. So I sped this up. This is about 10 minutes later. My dough has been rising in my bowl, and I'm going to uncover it and add it back to another floured surface so that we can just knead it out a little bit and then roll it into pretzels. As you can see, it already grew in size very quickly, and it's a little bit tougher to knead. And if it's still too sticky and you think it's going to stick when you roll out your pretzels, just add a little bit more flour again. I just kneaded this down for a few minutes until it felt nice and soft, and then we are going to cut it into about 1/3 cup size sections. So for this, you can weigh it if you have a scale at home. I don't have a scale, so I kind of just eyeballed it. I cut it into even sections and even fours, and then I cut those in half, and I just go from there and try to make sure they're all even just by feeling by hand and just by looking at it. They didn't have to be perfect since it's just for me and my family, but if you're trying to sell them or anything like that, I'd recommend getting a scale. But otherwise, you could do what I did and just cut them into sections until they all look even and feel about the same weight in your hand. So I was able to get about 14 pretzels out of this. So once you have them into even sections, you're going to just keep rolling them with your hands like I'm doing here. And then once you get it into about a 22-inch rope, then that's when you can twist it into your pretzel. So you just want to be gentle, keep rolling. If you pull too hard, the dough will just break. And trust me, I did that countless times here. And you can always pinch it back together, but it's a lot easier if you don't break the dough. So just keep rolling with your hands, kind of let it hang and let gravity pull it down. And then just try to make sure that the whole thing is even all the way through in thickness. And then when it looks to be about 20 to 22 inches long, that's when you're ready to start twisting up your pretzel. You're gonna need a baking sheet. I lined mine with parchment paper. You could always just have a greased baking sheet, but I'm afraid the bottoms would burn with the grease. So I've always used the parchment paper and it's came out perfect. So this is how we are going to roll our pretzels. I didn't show it too well here on the first step. because I was trying to remember myself how to make these. It's been a while since I did it, but on the next pretzel, you can see a little better how I did it, and I'll explain better. So what you want to do is bring your ends up into like a U shape, and then you're going to twist it over twice, and then bring down your ends and just tuck them underneath. So it's very simple to get down. Hopefully watching me do it a few times would make it easier. But like I said, once you have your rope, you're just going to set it down and make like a smiley face or a U shape, and then do 1 and 2 twists, bring down the ends, and then just tuck them under. I like to pinch them under to get it stuck in the dough so that it doesn't come apart. The other people I've watched, they just lay it there and that's it. And it comes out good too, but this is the way I like to do it, and they've came out very nice each time. So it should look like these. And then you're just going to set them aside because we still need to use the baking soda bath before baking. I had my helpers come help me out with this. It's always fun to bring your kids in the kitchen to get them to try these out with you and just get some kitchen skills at the same time and some bonding time. So I was trying to be as creative as I could. It was taking so long to get these rolled out. So whatever you got to do, if you want to swing them in the air like I was, or just keep pinching and twisting, if you have a better idea or you are better at this, I would love to know any tips in the comments, because we are by no means professional bakers, but this is how we did it and they came out amazing. So once you have all your pretzels shaped and rolled and ready to go, you're going to lightly drop them into your baking soda bath. I did about 3 to 4 at a time. I wouldn't do more than that because they could stick together and you just want to keep them looking good. So 3 or 4 max in there, and then you're only going to leave them in the bath about 20 to 30 seconds. So I just counted, and then I took them out one by one and just use like a nice slotted spoon, and we're going to just set those right back onto the parchment paper. So you're going to do that for every single pretzel, 20 to 30 seconds in the bath water, and then set them back down on your baking sheet. So once all your pretzels are done in the bath, if you want to do salted, you can. This is when you'd add your salt. We did about most of them salted and a few cinnamon sugar. So for most of them, I added the salt. You can use any salt you like. I think thicker salt is much better, so we use sea salt. Just put as much as you'd like. You can even do this after if you'd prefer, but it tasted really good to do it in the beginning. And then we're going to bake this in the oven at 400 degrees for just about 12 minutes. You'll know when these are done because they'll have a nice golden color on top. And then while they're baking, I got my cinnamon sugar ready. I just put some cinnamon and white sugar in a bowl and mixed it together. I didn't measure any of this out because we were just doing a few of them, but if you want to do it more precisely, I honestly wouldn't have a measurement for you. So just as much as you want, as many pretzels as you're going to add the cinnamon sugar to. And you can also prep your butter. When mine came out, I added some melted Irish butter. This one I used the pure salted butter, and then you just melt it and get a little paintbrush, and you're going to paint that on top of all your pretzels, salted and cinnamon sugar. When they look like this, that's when they're done. They have a nice golden color, but just check them. I like to press on them, make sure they're not doughy inside, make sure the bottoms aren't sticking or burnt, and these came out perfect. So I added a little bit more salt to my salted ones, and then I melted the butter and I painted over my salted pretzels just very lightly so that the salt doesn't come off. And then over my cinnamon sugar ones as well, I painted them with the butter, and then I dropped them in the cinnamon sugar, and then I coated both sides and set them back down on the baking sheet. You could even be creative with this and do different toppings if there's something you want to try. I think it'd be a really fun idea to just get creative with it and try different kinds, because these two came out so good. You probably can't go wrong. If you prefer unsalted, I would still do the butter part. Just don't put any salt when you bake them or when they come out, and then just brush them with the butter. It really gives like a perfect topping to these, just like the ones you'd get at like a theme park or where you'd buy it at a bakery or a coffee shop. they just taste professional once you add the butter. So here's where I added my cinnamon sugar. They're still nice and moist from the butter and warm from the oven, so be careful. And then just mix it around in there and set it back down on your baking sheet. And then I sprinkled a little bit more on top to cover all the empty spaces. Altogether, these pretzels were done in under an hour. We just decided we were hungry and pretzels sounded like such a good snack, and I just started baking. But the fact that these can be done and ready in under an hour is just really, really nice for us. So this is what the salted look like, and this is what the cinnamon sugar look like. And as you can see inside, it just baked perfectly. They're nice and soft on the inside, and the outside is a nice, firm, chewy texture. And then you could dip these in nacho cheese if you want to. You can dip them in mustard like we did, or just eat them plain. Let me know what you guys think. I hope you enjoyed.